Okay, welcome everybody to the Summer Blockbuster Review. My name is Harry, aka the Mind of Cube, and I have with me my guest, Richard Optimus 124 Brown. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm pretty good, sir. How about you?
I'm doing well. Looks like I'm having some internet troubles, but I promise you, everybody, I am hardwired in, so hopefully that will not continue to happen. But today's episode is about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2014 edition. Richard and myself will be discussing our likes, dislikes about the movie. Richard, as always, please tell us how you felt.
It's one of those things where it's like nostalgia again is a cruel master. Um, of course, we all grew up with, at least those of us in our generation, we all grew up with Ninja Turtles. So it was kind of one of the properties coming out of the '80s, going into the '90s. And I'll be honest with you, like with this movie, I put it this way: if you like the original Ninja Turtle movies, then you would like this movie. I wasn't a big fan of the original Ninja Turtles movie, so this movie, when I came into it, I was kind of like, meh. And when I walked out of it, I was kind of like, eh. I mean, it had some, the turtle characterizations were kind of all one-dimensional, but that's kind of how they were in the movies as well. So it's not like I really got anything that I would say would be totally different. Um, Megan Fox just needs to stop acting at this
Thank
point
you.
because because I mean it's funny because she was being treated as she didn't want to be this reporter that wanted to be over sexualized, and in the movie basically that's exactly what she plays. Uh, you can kind of tell it's great that I appreciate the fact that this movie, what it did do is that it did try to go ahead and hark back to what the fans wanted, because you heard original on that it was going to be like there were aliens, and then William Fichtner was going to be actually Shredder, and you can kind of tell that the way the movie was shot, that pretty much is was the case until probably like 6 months before, and then it seems like, oh, this we have to do this massive rewrite. So I mean, it addressed the things that I think fans of the series wanted to see, but to say that it was a great movie, it was just all right. I mean, it had some really interesting action sequences. I will say that. Um, the way that things actually played out throughout the course of the movie, I was just kind of like, it's like there was a lot of exposition in just the sake of it being exposition. Like it was April would say something and it's like, oh well, this is how it is because I knew this since I was a kid. But yeah, I just kind of wanted it to. There was not a lot of like pressure or dynamic conflict between like the turtles and then the arch villain. It was really a conflict based around April O'Neil and William Fichtner. It just kind of that's really what it seemed the movie was about. It suffers from, in my opinion, it suffers from what the original Transformers, the first three Transformers movies, kind of suffered from, where the turtles, even though they were present in the movie a great bit, the biggest difference is the fact that the conflict was not really about the turtles. Like the turtles and Shredder were kind of just backdrops to their story instead of it being the other way around. So for me, it was just if you like the original movies, you more than likely you will like this one. If you didn't like the original movies, it's not going to be anything that's going to change your mind. The only last point I want to leave out off with is that pretty much I would equate this to the Alvin and the Chipmunks of the Ninja Turtle saga, because it's definitely engineered and it's definitely thrown at for kids. However, I'm a firm believer that just because it is a kids movie, it does not necessarily mean that you can lax off on things like plot and actual dynamic purpose of a villain. Because if you think about it, really, the villain really didn't have any. It was just like it's like kind of what I felt about Ronan the Accuser. He's evil for the sake of being evil, and that's just kind of what I felt. Well, I mean, they did give him a little bit of thing, but it was kind of like at the very end when they actually kind of explained his motivation, and his motivation was kind of like, okay. So I mean, I'm pretty sure we're getting to a lot of the other little plot elements and stuff, but right now it's kind of like it was all right. It was
Yeah, so I just want to point out there that yes, the Q&A is live and we have a couple viewers watching. So if you want to drop us some questions, please go ahead and do so. What I want, it's like you have like you have space that you have occupied up in my head right now. Because when I was watching the movie, I was thinking the same thing that you mentioned, and I just want to go into a little bit more details about what you said. First of
Right.
all, like you said, I was told after the movie that this is based off of one of the new Ninja Turtles series that came on Nickelodeon. Because apparently the chick with the black with the pink highlights
Oh
is in the
yeah.
is in the new
Okay.
cartoon. Because I was like, yo, who was that chick that did absolutely nothing but had dialogue? Like I know who April O'Neil is. I can understand why you throw in her cameraman, but who is this other chick with dialogue that she didn't get explained? So it's
Right.
explained to me that in the cartoon series that's out now, is that she's this badass ninja girl that has a conflict with Leonardo. So I was like, okay, why is that in the movie? Sorry for a little premature spoiler, but we're doing them early. So I was trying to figure that out. Also, with the movie, like you said, how they had felt like there was a massive rewrite and how they doing a couple quirkies about them being actual turtles that mutated into 6 foot tall versus them being aliens. I appreciated
Right.
that because at first sign when I heard about them being aliens, I was just like, well, it should be TANT versus TMNT
Right.
because it doesn't make sense to call them Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when they're actually aliens. So I did appreciate that. As far as the action sequence go, that was very well appreciative. Seeing that, we'll touch about the CG and how it looked real and whatnot later on in the show. Also, like you said, is that the turtles were there in the movie, just like the first three Transformers suffered from that. This movie definitely suffered from that. I felt as though the movie was not about the conflict between the turtles and Shredder, or the turtles and the Foot Clan, or turtles and keeping their identity secret. I felt as though it was a struggle between April O'Neil and I already forgot the other guy's name. I thought there was more of a
Yeah.
conflict between
Snacks.
them.
Snacks
Yeah,
is in that. Yeah.
it felt like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This movie should have been really called April O'Neil featuring the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
'Cause
Um.
she steals the
You know.
screen entirely the movie, and her dumb glare into the camera is ridiculous. Like, there's a famous line that I like to use when girls have attitudes talk to me. Is like, you better gain some personality because a cute ass won't get you through life forever. And that's what I
You're
really
gonna get
feel
old at
about.
some point.
Yeah, you're going to get
Yeah.
old at some point, and it's going to drop. That's what I feel about Megan Fox. She's cute to look at right now, but find another profession.
Yeah.
Modeling, hand
Yeah.
modeling, swimsuit modeling, Victoria's Secret modeling, something else. You should not act anymore. I'm tired of seeing you on screen. As far as acting goes, that's 100%. Just get that out there.
Yeah.
And I just want to go out there and say to all the fanboys out there that this movie is not a Michael Bay directed movie. He is a producer, so there is
Hmm.
another producer out there that likes to do. I'm sorry, another director out there that likes to do long gazing shots of beautiful women with a blind on their face. So don't blame Michael Bay for Megan Fox being in this movie. You might be able to, but he was just a producer on this movie.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
it's kind of when you're watching it, there were just some things in the movie that just kind of happened, and they just seemed to happen because that's what they needed to. They needed stuff to happen in order to cascade the plot further, and that just kind of as a kids movie, it worked. It definitely worked as a kids movie. It's like you go in there and you wanted to have your kids shut up for 2 hours. It's kind of what it was, and it did have some entertaining sections. And I can't say that the movie was. I don't. By no means am I saying this is the worst movie I've seen this summer. It's just kind of there. You know, it's nothing that I would say. You must go see. Uh, the one thing I found that was funny about this movie is that you can really put a lot of parallels between this movie and The Amazing Spider-Man. Because if you think about how the villain played out, how April O'Neil's character pretty much had that same, oh, my dad created the Turtles kind of thing going on, like from the very first Spider-Man, the first
oh,
Amazing
okay, the
Spider-Man
first
movie.
Amazing Spider-Man. Okay, now I
Yeah,
follow you. Now
and
I follow
then and then and think about it, because even when I saw it at the very end, Shredder's about to release this mass toxin thing. This is kind of a spoiler going into it, but Shredder pretty much his in game plan pretty much plays out the exact same way as it does in the Amazing Spider-Man when Spider-Man fights against the Lizard. It plays out the exact same way. The only difference is instead of Spider-Man versus Lizard, you have Shredder versus four turtles, and it's at night, versus in the day in this movie. So it's just I don't know if they were intending to do that sort of thing, if that was their primary purpose, like, hey, we want to go ahead and mirror this.
Now that you mentioned that, it also, because in the Amazing Spider-Man, they went to this building with a large antenna on the top to disperse the venom. In this movie, they went to a large antenna to disperse it. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. There are a lot of parallels between that movie. So it's like, as we kind of go along with this thing, you kind of start seeing trends between several different movies. When I saw that, I was like, really, they actually pulled that straight out of Amazing Spider-Man 2, which, to me, I thought that one was decent. So I guess if you're like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it called back to a lot of things, and I don't know if you want to go into the spoiler part yet or not. But I mean, I'll let you kind of make that call on that. But it was just it just seemed like at the end of the day, the movie was kind of a half step. It's like it looks like they had an idea originally how they were going to put this movie out, and then once they found out through that script treatment of how it originally was, they backpedaled and said, no, we can't do that now because this movie is going to completely bomb if we do. So it seemed like that just happened to be the thing. Even if you look at the way the Foot Clan operated, like, do you think, like, really, the Foot Clan, in my opinion, really didn't have any sort of, like, purpose? They just kind of they were just basically like, it was like gang violence. They really didn't do anything. They just happened to have guns, and then once somebody kind of got involved at one time, then he started to escalate things. But it really didn't seem like they really did anything. They were just kind of like your average street gang. The only difference is they wore masks and carried around AK-47s in public, which some people think that's cool under the Second Amendment. So, so I don't know. It was kind of, it just seemed like it was I think they had good intentions with the stuff that they tried to correct, but I think it just kind of fell flat,
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. The Foot Clan was pretty much useless in this movie. There was no depth to them or no reason why. Like I mentioned earlier, the girl with the pink highlights, I don't think they even said her name in the entire movie. You just had to know.
They did say her name when Shredder was talking to her, and all those scenes seemed like they were added in after the fact. Like anytime when Shredder was on scene, it just seemed like it was like, oh well, we got to throw this dude in here because everybody needs. They technically didn't even say his name, like what his actual name was, and at least I don't remember hearing it. I never heard Oroku Saki in the movie itself. I never actually heard his name, so it's all the dynamics of what made Shredder a villain are pretty much invalidated because he was just kind of the guy sitting in the back. Like if you got someone like Thanos, it's kind of like it's okay because you just kind of where he is and where he's going, but there's some depth and there's some reason to go behind it.
Well, hold on, pause that, because with Thanos, the main conflict isn't between Thanos and the protagonist in the movie. Thanos is his character so far now is a build-up to his ultimate, probably fifth Avenger movie that's going to come out later on. But the Shredder is supposed to be the main antagonist in the movie, and it failed just like Rowan the Accuser did in Guardians of the Galaxy. So let's just go ahead and roll into the spoiler part of the portion of this podcast, because I don't think we can talk anymore about giving the movie away.
Right.
So continue on.
Yeah, you know what? And here's the thing that kind of irked me about that movie is that this is like when you literally hear the record skip was when you find out that Splinter pretty much decided that, in order to teach the turtles in order to be a good parent, he taught the turtles ninjutsu because he found a book in the sewer. I was like, yo, come on, like, come on, it was nice to see that, it was something. Now I'll be honest with you, like to actually see when they showed the turtles actually as kids, when they were younger and playing around, and that was actually pretty cool. It's just, it could have been, it could have just been something else somehow. I guess, because if you think about how illogical the original movie was, like, Splinter was basically, a rat that was in a cage that was watching his master and he was practicing along with him. That was just as illogical. But it just seemed that being the way to do it, it just was like.
And you see, I just want to fall back to how the original '80s cartoon was. How it was a man who became a mutated rat.
Yeah.
I don't know why that made because like you said, the first Ninja Turtle movie, that was hysterical. Even as before a pre-teenager watching, I'm thinking about a rat practicing kung fu. That didn't compute in my in my pre-teenage mind as being logical.
Right.
Right here, a rat all of a sudden finds a book, and from that book he learns ninjutsu. Let's not even talk about how to even learn to articulate words and speak English with a Japanese accent. I just thought that was.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's ultimate cheese in there. You got those elements, and then you just kind of see, and you're like, okay, all right. It was one of those, like you always say, that I believe button had to get hit, because I was just like, man, come on, like. That's
how you were slapping the I believe button pretty hard when they were explaining their backstory.
That and then the fact that they were April's pets. There was no inclination. Let's be honest. I mean, if April O'Neil would have been an artist, because apparently she gave them all their names, like Splinter, Michelangelo, Donatello, Raphael, Leonardo. She gave them all their names. And the thing I found funny about it is there's never really no reason as to why Splinter was called Splinter. Not saying necessarily there has to be one, but for like an 8-year-old kid, I mean, you're gonna be in art like that. It's a possibility. It's just because in the original cartoon, in the original cartoon and in the original movies, there was a reason why they were named, and even in the comics, there was a reason why they were named those names. Because they're named for the great artist and it's a martial art and that kind of stuff. Whereas this is just kind of like, well, that's what their names were 20 years ago. We might as well go and put them back in. That's kind of just how it felt, like they were shoehorned into it. So it's, and of course the same argument can be made for a whole bunch of other movies. It's just that the way that their backstory played out, it felt in a lot of cases that it was just done. Like there were parts that just seemed like it was like, I'm going to tell you this because there's not enough depth to the scene to make it work. It was that, yeah. It's there, and I'm trying to figure out some other things, like when Shredder was just kind of there, like Shredder's just there, like he's.
Okay. Let's pause about the Shredder thing, because at first when you saw him bound and then he's taking on this one clan soldier, I thought, okay, the Shredder guy is about to be a serious badass on the screen. And then he shows up again in his suit already. And I was thinking, oh, okay, well, we're about to see this epic fight scene. There's going to be some type of conflict or something going on, why he wants the turtles and whatnot. But it reverts back to the humans talking about that he needs to capture the turtles to extract their blood to get the mutagen so he can make millions of dollars off of selling this miracle cure. And I'm just thinking, well, wait a minute. There's always been Shredder always wanted to kill the turtles, even in the cartoon. Why doesn't that exist? Why can't you put that in there? I don't see why you're missing that. I mean, every Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoon I've ever seen, that's always been, it's like Starscream always has this thing with Megatron. He wants to take him out. You need to.
Well, the reason why it's like that is because, in all honesty, we all can tell, even through the course of that movie, that pretty much William Fichtner's character, Sax, was supposed to be Shredder all the way through, and then they just kind of shoehorn these scenes in because we know for a fact. Because if you think about a Shredder, you never technically saw Shredder's face when he was in the armor. You never saw his eyes. You never really saw. It's like his face is completely masked all the way through, as a Robot Samurai. But it just feels that he is pretty much I don't want to say like a backdrop, but it's like they threw him in there because, hey, well, we have to have him in here. So because we have to have him in here, we're just going to go ahead and do this. I guess more than likely, since this movie is probably going to make a good bit of money, they are going to do a sequel. And now I guess Shredder's going to have his revenge on the Turtles because they basically threw him off of a building. So it just seems like that's how it's going to be played out. Like there wasn't really any dynamic conflict between the actual Turtles themselves and that villain. Like that just conflict was just never there, was never defined. It just seems like April O'Neil had daddy issues because Sax basically was a bad person.
I will say, because we're bashing this movie pretty hard, I will say that the comic relief in this movie was
You
what
know, and
was.
and actually, that is something we do need to bring up because actually the personalization of the turtles was actually pretty solid. They were a little too one-dimensional for me. I think that Michelangelo being basically uber creep was kind of it was a little too much at times, but I think actually overall their personalities were there. Leonardo was a little bit. If you had to say there was one that kind of suffered, it would be Leonardo because he was just kind of like just there. He was just kind of bland. He was
Little
like,
douchery.
yeah. And
Like.
then I would say Raphael was kind of the only one that had like some depth to him because he had an internal conflict. Out of all the other turtles, all the other three were just there, and Raphael was the only one that just kind of was like, he had some inner tragedy kind of going on with why he does the things that he does. It's just kind of the turtles, their characterizations were fine, but there wasn't really any conflict that really made them worthy of actually being in their own movie. Like I said, the same argument could be made for, like I said, definitely the first two Transformers movies. The third one was a little bit better. The fourth one, it kind of goes into that realm of where the actual story is dependent upon their own goal versus the other way around. So as far as the good things about this movie, it definitely did have that comic relief. That was actually really, really solid. But the conflict between the characters and why they're doing what they're doing, it was kind of like, it was by the numbers. It just kind of was like, well, we're going to make this movie, and hopefully it does well enough to make a sequel. And we're going to put these things in here because the adult fans are going to want to see it. So that way they can't say that we didn't care about their franchise. And that it just kind of felt like, just to be honest, it just felt like they did it because they had to, not because they really, really wanted to. 'Cause I think if they originally had their way, it would have been a totally different movie, or if there wasn't enough internet backlash because of it. That's really, in my opinion, what actually happened.
So you pretty much guarantee there's going to be a sequel to this.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a sequel.
Like 5 Resident Evil movies, there's going to be another.
Yeah, there's no question there's going to be a sequel to this movie. If they actually get back to the core, but the question is, how, between the way the cartoon was and between the way that the original movie was, what is going to be Shredder's motivation other than you pushed me off of a building, I must kill you now? Like, there's not really a lot to go there, and depending on how things get resolved with Sax's next movie, the money could be gone. So that was kind of one of the things about the resources that Shredder provided. Well, because we don't know what his real name is, but I'm gonna call him Shredder. Shredder provided resources as far as humans or people for the Foot Clan, and then the other guy provided endless money. So I don't know. I'm just kind of to like I said earlier, just kind of just feels like it's going to get like used kind of how Alvin and the Chipmunks is. It's just we're doing this because hey, we know that you want this franchise. You'll get to see Turtles on screen because they had an adequate amount of screen time. So that was one good thing about it. They did have adequate amount of screen time. It just kind of was like when they were on screen. It wasn't a whole lot of depth there, when April O'Neil was kind of getting thrown around everywhere. It's really.
There's one thing we forgot to talk about, and that was the CG in this movie.
Okay. Yeah.
And I felt as though that since they made the turtles so tall, that they were just fake looking in the movie. And let me explain. So when you look at the Transformers movie and you compare how tall the Transformers are to the humans, because they are outrageously taller than the humans, it's believable. Versus when she said they were 6-foot tall turtles, and then you see her sitting next to a turtle, it looked like they easily had 2 feet on her.
Yeah.
It make them about 7 feet. tall.
Right. And Will Arnett's not a small dude either. He's not a
Yeah.
short guy.
So they didn't when they were on the scene by themselves fighting the Shredder, great, perfect. When they were on the scenes fighting humans, I was thinking, okay, this is kind of ridiculous looking. Because, like, I mean, with the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, probably the best CG movie I've seen this year.
Yeah.
I was like, the bar has been set. You fell way short of the bar right there. So, how were your takes on the CG in this movie?
It, it was functional. I mean, it did the job. I can't say it was like anything mind blowing. And the thing, if you ever look at a movie, you can tell how they're trying to cheat based on color. Because if you look at the way that the colors are really, really stretched out in this movie, it's like everything is like hyper red, hyper orange, hyper blue. It's like there's a lot of, I mean, and of course that it's one of those things where to make it look more like a comic book feel and give it a lighter feel to it. Of course, that's how they do it. But also, if you change the lighting, it changes your brain's perspective on how you're supposed to interpret what you see on screen. So because of that, it's like, I mean, it did its job. I can't say there was anything that like I was like, oh, this looks like, yeah, this looks terrible. That going down the hill sequence was actually probably one of the coolest sequences in the movie, and they didn't really show all the cool stuff in it in the trailers either. Like I was actually like, all right, that was okay. But other than that, I mean, it was, most
Agreed,
of the
agreed. That going down the hill, I thought you were just going to see Rav Turtle flip his shell into a Humvee. Yeah. The going down the hill scene was pretty hot, and the elevator rap scene was probably the funniest scene
yeah, that
in the
was that
movie.
was it had its moments, and that's why I can't really say it's got a lot of flaws, and I can't say it's terrible because to completely rip this movie apart in the sense of like saying everything with it was wrong is a little hard to say. It's geared towards children. I would say like an adult fan who really really likes the Turtles movies is going to enjoy the mess out of it, and that's okay because there are some fans of other properties who people say are not good at all, and they love the movies. And I mean, hey, if you like it, there's nothing wrong with it. You put your money where you want. You want more stuff to come out of that franchise, and obviously, I'm pretty sure, just like Alvin and the Chipmunks and Smurfs, because they keep doing that movie for some reason. I've never seen any of the Smurfs movies, and I'm not going to. But this, for those franchises that happen, for Transformers, for all these comic franchises, you see these things, come out, and the ones that survive are the ones that make the most money. Obviously, look at the ones that don't. Green Lantern, Green Hornet, stuff like that. They don't. They don't
Anything
work.
green.
Yeah, anything green seems like the color of money goes against what the movie you're trying to put out. So I mean,
For some odd reason, they made two G.I. Joe movies, and neither one of them have been good.
I haven't, I've not seen any of the G.I. Joe movies yet. So one of these days I'm gonna go back and do it.
Thank yourself.
Yeah,
You would shoot a bootlegger if you got the G.I. Joe movie from him. That's how.
Someone told me that the second one wasn't as bad, but yeah. So
All right, so I've devised this new ranking system since now we're into 12 movies. So pretty much our solid A-plus movie is a Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So that's what we call the pinnacle.
okay.
The bottom of the barrel is Lucy. That's what we call it. Even when you hit the I believe button, you still go, what?
Yeah.
So, and then we have in the middle, we have, of course, your Edge of Tomorrow, your Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, movies that are quality movies that you should go see. And then on the outside, we have the 22 Jump Street as in, there's nothing else better to do. Yeah, this is where that movie belongs. So we're still going to give the ranking, but we're going to put it up there with Captain America, down there with Lucy, over there with the Yeah, You Need to Go, run-of-the-mill movies, or the one, I'm sorry, Yeah, You Need to Go, these are good movies to watch, and then we have the, yeah, run-of-the-mill, if there's nothing else better to do, go do. So I'm going to go first to give you kind of an idea.
Yeah.
So this movie here, I'm not going to give it a B. I'm just going to go out there and say it now. I have the Q&A open, so if you want to flood me with questions, go ahead. I'm not going to give this movie a B for simple reasons as the story to me took too long to get going. When it got going, the backdrop of the turtles and how they were created and how they learned their ninjutsu art and whatnot didn't seem to go along well with the movie. The CG was mediocre at best. I thought the movie itself was mediocre at best. Did I hate it? No, it's not a Lucy. Did I love it? No, it's not a Captain America. Is it one of the movies that, yeah, you need to go see, like Edge of Tomorrow? No. Is it the you have nothing else better to do type movie? Yeah, that's where I throw this movie over there with 22 Jump Street. So I'm going to give this movie a C+, a strong C+. But I'm just saying that as the me kid who grew up in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle era, this movie to me didn't do it real justice. Maybe perhaps if I grew up watching the newer properties that are out there of Ninja Turtles, I might have liked this movie a little bit better. I just thought this movie was lacking in serious parts, but it was functional as and to the point where I didn't feel as though I wanted a refund back for watching this movie.
I'll go out. Like I said, this is definitely to put it in perspective. If you haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy, go see that. Don't see this movie.
Yes.
For me, it's kind of I'm pretty much exactly the same. I don't hate it. I don't hate it to the point of where I'm like I regret the fact that I spent money to go see it. Did I love it? No. It's definitely one of those cases where if you want to literally, if you are a fan of the franchise, I would say go see it because you will get exactly what you want. But if you are a person who is looking for character development, depth, all these other things that go along with a lot of movies, because even the CG spectacle aspect of it, it's not really there. It's just kind of like you have your set pieces, but they're not really there as compared to some other properties that are known for just having a whole bunch of spectacle. It's like to give it a D plus. Honestly, would be a little too hard, just because I think it did do some things right as far as the humor, some of the comedic aspects of it. It's just that everything else, it doesn't carry its own weight in those respects. I'm gonna give it. It just edges by with me. Like I would say, it's really just a mediocre, average C. Like I won't put it into a C plus because I think that'd be too nice. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a C, and the only reason why I say that is because you get what you expect out of the movie, but at the same time, there's nothing about it that really makes me say that, oh man, if I really need to go see a Ninja Turtles movie. Like to care about a sequel to this movie is going to be very, very hard because there really is nothing about the Turtles that actually makes them having a sequel because the primary reason for their existence, the primary villain technically that you had is no longer an issue. So I mean, like I said, unless Shredder literally is going to have a revenge plot just to get them, which really doesn't have any depth or any like total focus with it. It's like we're gonna make a sequel because we have to and we'll make money. Also known as it'll suffer from Amazing Spider-Man 2 syndrome. Because that movie was made because they had to make a sequel. And that's kind of where I feel that this is going just from the way that things ended. So for me it's like I walked out of the movie, it's just average. For a person of the franchise who loves the franchise, they're gonna really, really enjoy this movie. If you have kids and you want to have them sit there for 2 hours and be like, Ninja Turtles, yay! That's the audience that you're going for. So it's kind of like I was saying earlier, it's kind of like going to be like your Alvin and the Chipmunks. I'm not going to put it with Smurfs because I heard Smurf movies are terrible, and this movie is by far not terrible. It's just not all that great. So that's just kind of where I'm at with it.
Okay, so I gave it C+, Richard gave it a C. So, yeah, nothing else better to do on a Saturday or Sunday. Go check this movie out. Definitely.
If you haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy, yeah, check this movie out. So, upcoming movies that we're going to do. So, there's Step It Up All In coming, Richard.
No, sir. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. No, sir. We're not doing that. I'm gonna have to take a knee on that one. No, sir. I think what is it, the Expendables comes out next week, though, right? That's the
Actually,
next.
I'm kind of conflicted. I'm kind of conflicted. So Wednesday we have Let's Be Cops, and then
I got a feeling that movie is gonna be so bad, but okay.
we have the Expendables. So the Expendables is a. I'm definitely going to go see the Expendables. If I can get talked in to go see Let's Be Cops, or somebody else wants to pay to let for me to go see Let's Be Cops, I actually might go see that movie. Or if I get a free ticket when I go to see the Expendables, I might just check it out. Or it
Yeah,
might be a 2-for-1 night in the theater. I'm sorry, it still happens.
it comes out on the 15th. So yeah, so that's next, not next Friday. That's actually this coming Friday. So
It's kind of funny.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I think the Expendables will probably be the one. Um, as far as trailers are concerned, I didn't see anything new, other than they did a much more, I guess, direct trailer about the new Hunger Games movie. And here's something I found funny about the way they're doing these teen drama books now, is that why is everybody taking the last book and then splitting it in half? Like, if that's the case, then honestly, why don't you just either it just seems like that's more of a profitable move because you took the other books that set up everything in your entire story and made them one movie, but you're going to take the very end of it and split it in two.
And here's what I would like to say about that is with the Harry Potter, I think it's the first one to do that. First of
Right.
all, genius because I loved Harry Potter books. I was going to go see Harry Potter even if they went all the way up to 10. It didn't matter to me. And I felt as though when watching the last Harry Potter, I think it was the Half-Blood Prince, I felt as though they left so much out of that movie that was in the book that just really hurt me inside because like you say, your imagination is going to be much better than any type of motion picture out there,
Right.
period. I just wanted to see certain elements in that book come to the silver screen so bad that it just kind of hurt me when it didn't. And then when I saw I forgot, the Deathly House movie, I was just like, well, wait a minute. I don't remember this in the book. Kind of went back and reread the book again. Was like, oh, they added that stuff into the movie. So I feel as though one, you get a little bit more liberty of what you can do with the story when you break it into two movies. You really don't tell it verbatim, word for word. So you kind of, I guess, when you want to change this little element of it, you have more movie time to explain why you changed this element of it. That's another reason why I think they did it. With the Hunger Games, which is, I don't know. Okay, look, listen, if you haven't read the books of the Hunger Games, turn it off now. Okay, so with the Hunger Games, I felt as though with the last book, they kind of rushed it a whole lot because characters that showed up in the second book all of a sudden were just dying off rapid fire in the third book. And I was just like, wow. You don't get to learn nothing about these people. They're here, like they get introduced, and then all of a sudden, bam, they come straight down. There's just no character development in the story. And then she wraps it all the way back to the first book with the characters now. And I'm trying not to spoil this as much as possible in what happens with them in the last movie. So, in the last book, I'm sorry. So it was kind of a little bit rushed in that book. So I'm very interested to see how they could take a book that I thought was rushed into its completion and split that into two movies. Because this one right here is very interesting to me. And to be honest with you, I thought the previous two Hunger Game movies were a dud compared to my imagination and what I thought the books were. Because there was I was a huge fan of the books, and there is a lot more violence in the books than it was put to the screen.
That, I know we're kind of going off on that one, but the thing I found funny about it is that I saw the first movie and I have no desire to see the second movie because to me the first movie, I never read the books, but even watching the movie, it felt like stuff was not all there. So when I saw the trailers saying that they were going to take the very last book and split it in half, it just seemed like that's straight up a for-profit move.
You see, and let me explain, because there was a lot more killing in the books, but the Soccer Mom Coalition got upset because I can't believe they're making this into. I mean, yeah, it's going to be kids killing kids. I'm just like, did you let your kids read the book? Yeah, duh. What you think was written on paper? I've
Yeah.
always tried to explain to people when they talk about there's too much violence in video games, there's too much violence on TV. I'm like, open up any book and read it nowadays. There's
Hmm.
so much violence in books these that you can find that just blows TV and movie out the water.
Oh
If you
yeah.
don't believe me, 50 Shades of Grey. I don't see how that gets an R rating. If they do that, yeah, first of all, yes, I read it. It was for a chick. But 50 Shades of Grey, that movie needs an NC-17 rating if it's
if
anything
they
close,
if they do it right, yeah.
close to the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything close to the book, it needs an NC-17. Silicon Valley, Hustler, and Playboy are all saying, and y'all got problems with me? If it comes to
Yeah.
anything close to what 50 Shades of Grey was. So, yeah. So, I'm sorry, went off on a tangent there. I get kind of passionate when people talk about violence on TV. I'm just like, pick up a book and read way more. But anyways, Expendables, it's a do. We're going to do that one for our next show. The show after that, I'm going to be on vacation, so
Okay.
that's a maybe. I'm just going to throw it up there. It might not happen, so we might skip a week. And then we're coming into college football realm.
Uh-oh.
So it's going to kind of, I know we can't do two. We're pretty much going to be zilch out of doing two movies in one show anymore because I gotta watch football.
Gotta watch football, man.
Gotta
This
watch
is
my
a
football, you know.
either that we'll have to maybe augment some times here and there every once in a while, you know.
Yeah, that is true. Oh, we might have to move the show to during the week. So be prepared with the football schedule. Originally, I wanted to end the show, but due to overwhelming responses in my mailbox, I will continue to do the show, just probably change the title to Movie Review, drop the summer off because summer's about to end here in September. But stay tuned. We're going to do the Expendables. I feel as though that everybody out there knows how to reach Richard on Google+, but Richard, go ahead and tell him again.
G+.2/Optimus124.
And me, as always, you can catch me right there at that little link right there, and I can't believe I got it right on the first try, as well as you can catch me on Google Plus at The Mind of Cube, Twitter The Mind of Cube, and Facebook pretty soon The Mind of Cube as well. I'm going to own all the properties. It looked like my camera went out again at the end of the show. So Comcast, I thank you again for the wonderful internet service. This has been the Summer Blockbuster review of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Thank you so much for watching. To the viewers, no questions. Kind of sad. I mean,
It happens, man. It's all good.
you know, don't send questions to my mailbox afterwards talking about why didn't you talk about this? You had your shot. So thank you for watching. Please continue to watch my show. Go back on YouTube, check the previous episodes. Stay tuned for the next one to come out, The Expendables. Hopefully I won't be so inundated at work. I can get the show invite out a little bit sooner. But thank you once again. I appreciate everybody for watching. And this has been Harry signing out. Have a good one.